You know, it can be quite scary how good some of Arsenal's players can be. As we kicked a few pumpkins into the back of Preston's net last night. This is the Arsenal News Show. No, it's not. It's the Arsenal Raw Reaction Show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you good guys and girls for another episode of what is our Arsenal Raw Reaction Show. Join you every single morning after the previous fixture, and today, of course, is that fixture against Preston in the League Cup as Arsenal progress to the quarterfinals of the competition. Happy Halloween, of course, to everybody that is enjoying the festivities of this most strange of days. I can't say I'm the big Halloween person myself, but the missus likes carving a pumpkin, so, we indulge in it a little bit, I guess. But good morning to those joining us in the chat box. Appreciate your time. Just let me check I've picked the right camera. Or rather, the right microphone. That should be the right one. I don't know why this does this. It's because I've got a Mac now. It kind of just it wants to prioritize. It wants to prioritize the Mac microphone rather than this microphone. So I don't know. I just need to make sure I check it at the start of every show. It's on me. That's on me. Good morning to he said good morning to Nwaneri. Good morning to Matt G. Good morning to Black Shine. Good morning to Steve. Olawale, Glenn. We've got Tom. We've got other Tom and Franklin. We've got Angus and John and Runs with Cows and Paul. Arasilki. We've got Dave. We've got Damien, Aiden, Jackie, Loga, Paul Barry. Rob, Rich, James, Stevens, Jamil, Rice Lip, and plenty more of you guys and girls too. Thank you as always for tuning in. It is incredibly appreciated. If you could drop a like, it takes you just a quick hot second to do so. It really does help us out. It costs you absolutely nothing, but it does contribute quite a lot to us. So please do. And if you're new to the channel, somehow you've tuned in for the first time, welcome, and please do subscribe and join us for the foreseeable future. Right, let's jump to today's stories, though. Back to business. Arsenal getting back to winning ways. It's been a little while since we've won a game of domestic football, I suppose. But yes, Arsenal getting back to much more dominant performances and certainly also a really solid performance, a dominant display. And some really good goals scored as well. And it could have been plenty more on the night as well. There was never really a threat from Preston. It was a really, I think, just comfortable, straightforward performance that we have been crying out for somewhat. But we looked at a lineup that was pretty much as expected, I think. I was surprised that actually Lewis Skelly didn't start. I did predict that we might see him come off the bench because of the midfield that we were going to go for. I thought it would be Rice, but it was Marino, which I guess makes sense, getting him some more minutes, giving Rice something of a rest. Tommy Setford starting in goal, Jurian Timber back to fitness, back at right back, Saliba, Kivior and Zinchenko in the back line, who we'll talk about in a second, Jorginho, Marino, Nwaneri, Sterling, Jesus and Martinelli all started the game. So, I think it was a really good performance overall, and certainly one we can be pleased with, and we'll go into some of the individual performances. But it was a much needed goal from Gabriel Jesus, who scored a fantastic volley straight into the right-hand side of the Preston goal. Really needed Jesus to get a goal. He's not scored since January. I was looking at the number of games that he hasn't scored in this season. It's bad that it was this season, of course, with no goals, no assists. But to think he's not got a goal since January is kind of a crazy stat that I wasn't even aware of going into this game. And it was all that people could mention once he'd actually hit the back of the net with his finish. Incredible to see it run that long. So very much a encouraging sign for Gabriel Jesus to get that goal. And it was a very good goal. And it was a very decent performance as well. From the Brazilian, and certainly one I hope that will build confidence in him again, as we need to use him throughout the course of this campaign. But the real headline act was the second goal, which came from Ethan Nwaneri, who continues to just impress and scored his best goal that we've seen him notch so far. Top left-hand corner, brilliant strike, brilliant curling finish, great first touch, great presence of awareness. He hit the bar in the second half with a similar strike on goal as well. And I tweeted saying that, Arsenal have sometimes lacked another match winner, a player that can grab the ball and just spin it into the back of the net from however many yards away. And maybe Ethan's going to turn into one of those players for us. And the more he does this, the more he starts, the more that he gets minutes. It's only going to encourage the fan base. It's going to put more pressure on Mikel Arteta to start him in bigger games. And I think there'll be a lot of Arsenal fans asking Ethan Nwaneri to start the game at the weekend. Trossard was an unused substitute, but I think that Trossard will start the game against Newcastle on Saturday lunchtime. But he asks a question, Nwaneri. He really does. He asks a question of whether or not he should be getting some more significant minutes. We've got 3 games coming up at Newcastle, Inter Milan, and at Chelsea. And I wouldn't have started him against Liverpool, but I would be starting him in one of these 3 games. You could start him at Newcastle. You could start him at Chelsea. I'm not sure Inter Milan's the right place to start him, but I think that there is definitely scope to bring him into the starting 11. And it's his awareness. I talked about this on one of the other shows. The difference between young players that you think are going to make it is 2 key factors. One is confidence, and the other one is first touch. And this kid has got both of those things in absolute abundance. The ability, the spatial awareness, the how confident he is on the ball. It can turn into space that he doesn't even look at, and he's aware of who's around him. He's aware of what space he's got to work with. He's still not refined. He's not perfect. He does make mistakes, yes, as you would expect from a 17-year-old. But it's just the execution of what he wants to do. He's got that ability that he sees the game, he sees the next move, and he can execute what he wants to do. And very few footballers are able to do that. And very few footballers, of course, make it at such an early age at such a high level. But it's exciting. That's the biggest. I think that's the word. It's exciting because when you bring through players of your academy, it's like making a signing in a season outside of the transfer window, because you're getting these new players come through and integrate into the sides. You not have to buy them, but they're new, they're exciting, they're shiny new toys. But Nwaneri, I think, absolutely needs to be given some more, given some more rope basically in games, and given more minutes and more opportunities. And Arteta is being very gradual and very careful, and it's working out so far. I think he could loosen the restriction a little bit more, but it's going very well indeed. And then Kai Havertz, of course, got on the score sheet. Ignore the fact that it says Mikel Moreno there. It wasn't Mikel Moreno. It was Kai Havertz who scored. It's a slide from the Man City game where I've just chucked a Kai Havertz picture on it. Very good header. I wanted him to get on the score sheet again. I was surprised he didn't start the game, actually. And a really great header. Really good delivery from Jakub Kiwior. It should be pointed out, as well. And I think that Kai Havertz continues to be a really important figure in this team, and will continue to be an important figure in the side moving forward. All this talk about a centre forward, of course, but it's really important that we have a player we have a centre forward like Havertz who can do what he does, who can offer something different from the bench as well. We think about the strikers that we might be signing in the future. He's going to have to come off the bench perhaps in those times and contribute. And he's done that. It was a better performance from Raheem Sterling. I was frustrated for him that, of course, his shot was blocked on the line. He ended up blocking a shot from Gabriel Jesus. I really think that that we're seeing more. I was really frustrated with his performance previously. I was frustrated with his performance against Shakhtar. He was jogging. He looked disinterested. That was not the case yesterday. He was sprinting back. He was getting back into a position. He was contributing. He was pressing. That's the most I've seen Sterling press in a long time. And maybe that Shakhtar game was something of a wake-up call. Maybe there was some conversations that have been had behind the scenes, because it was night and day, the performances against Shakhtar and the performance here against Preston. I think that Arteta is probably working some of his magic here. we just need to see Sterling catch a bit of a break now because, he did some really good things. There were some good passes, some good runs, a couple of good efforts, and he'd probably deserved a goal for his performance. The commentator, the co-com, I don't know who was on co-coms, but he couldn't have been more complimentary of Sterling's performances. But it was much, much better from Sterling. I also want to give a shout out to Jorginho. I thought also was very, very good. A shout out to Zinchenko. We talk about what we've done, what we've discussed, what we've missed. Zinchenko has been a player that we've missed. Genuinely, he's a player that I think that we've forgotten to a degree. We've forgotten what he can bring to the side. And I think there is something to be said about what Zinchenko can still add to this team in certain games, especially games that we were expected, of course, to dominate the ball more and to, be in a position where you're going to be able to dominate. And I think that we benefited a lot from Zinchenko being there. So yeah, that was absolutely really, really good to see from Zinchenko as well. A couple of debuts. We really cannot give Mikel Arteta any criticism now about the amount of debuts he's given to young players. First competitive appearances for Tommy Setford, and of course for Aiden Heaven. Some really, really good, performances. I think Tommy Setford, there's a little bit of nerves. Overall, did quite well. Managed his box well. Caught the ball well. Distributed well. A couple of balls that went a little bit astray, but that's to be expected of a young goalkeeper. Aiden Heaven came off the bench. Did all right. Not loads to be put him under pressure, but he stayed calm. And of course, Miles Lewis-Skelly came off the bench as well. Looked good, looked progressive, and looks very comfortable as part of this senior setup as well. And I just have to highlight the fact that Mikel Arteta was wearing a coat very akin to that of a certain Arsene Wenger. It wasn't quite as long as the Wenger coat. It was a little bit shorter than the usual Wenger coat, but it was a Wenger coat. And I loved seeing Arteta, pull on the Wenger coat. It's a very Arsenal thing. It's a very it's a pop culture reference without doubt for Arsenal fans. And Arteta, I thought, got everything really spot on last night. There wasn't really any kind of question marks. There wasn't any kind of shocks on the evening either. His press conference, he was asked about the attitude. He said, very good. We talked about that, about how playing with enthusiasm in this game and playing with the right attitude and commitment. And they certainly showed that. So I'm very happy to be in the quarterfinals. He was asked about Ethan, and he said he did it yesterday in training. So we're used to that. He's a big talent. He's got the right attitude, and he's got the right players and context around him. And we need to make sure that we put a brick by brick in the right order, but we have some player here. He was asked about his future development. He said he's going to really dictate how fast he's going to go, but I'm really happy with him. Asked about his character. He said so much personality there. He wants every ball. He wants to make things happen outside the and around. He's still a bit quiet as usual. He's 17 years old, very respectful. His work ethic is tremendous, and he loves what he does, and you can tell that as well. He was asked about Jesus making his first goal of the season. He said it's his first since January, I think. So it's been a long time, and that's going to, I think, unlock that mentality thing and move on. I think that he had a good performance tonight as well. Saka obviously came off the bench as well, and he said yes, because one, he's in the rhythm. He prefers to have that exposure. He's travelled with us, so he's always going to say that once I'm here, I prefer to play a few minutes as well to protect Gabby Martinelli as well, because he had a very big impact in the first half. So it worked out well. I think it was managed well. I think it was dealt with well, and I think ultimately things all went well yesterday, as did the draw. The draw went very well for Arsenal indeed. The results last night: Liverpool knocking out Brighton, Newcastle knocking out Chelsea, Crystal Palace winning away at Aston Villa, and Spurs, of course, beating Manchester City, with Manchester United also beating Leicester City in their first game without Erik ten Hag. Ruud van Nistelrooy taking over, winning 5-2. I wouldn't read too much into that performance, though. But Arsenal drawn at home against Crystal Palace. A really, really good draw for Arsenal. Again, probably the best draw of the lots. You could argue maybe Liverpool with Southampton, but it's away from home. Arsenal being at home is a really big one. The League Cup games are always great to give people opportunities to get to games they aren't able to usually get to. So, perfect. No excuses. Arsenal should be in a semi-final this season. And they should be beating Crystal Palace to get to that semi-final, and then it'll be up against one of those other teams with no Manchester City. You could argue that Arsenal and Liverpool there are favourites for the competition. Yeah, very, very interesting now as to who might be able to win this tournament. But Arsenal, I think, have to take this very, very seriously. Indeed, we have to be looking at trying to progress to that. I would be starting, most of our, if not all of our starting players in the game. If you want to know when the League Cup quarter-final dates are, just might as well check on those. They were meant to be, let's have a look. It says TBD, but it's meant to be around the week of the 17th of December. So it means that we'll actually play Crystal Palace twice in a week. So you play Everton away from home. We play Everton at home. It's another London game, by the way, in December, believe it or not. We play Everton at home on December 14th at 3 o'clock. We then go to Crystal Palace on December 21st at 5:30. And in between those two games, we will play Crystal Palace. So we'll play Crystal Palace back to back. So that's going to be very interesting indeed. And of course, that means a return to the Emirates for Eddie Nketiah as well. He'll be reunited with his side and with the fans, of course, that gave him plenty of support throughout the time at the club. Now, I mean, talking about support, NordVPN have supported us exceptionally well over the last few months, and a massive thank you once again for them for doing so. You can get yourself a significant discount off a 1 or a 2 year plan of the best VPN service on the network by going to nordvpn.com/Gooner. Get yourself a 30-day money-back guarantee if you're not happy with the service for whatever reason, but why would you when you know that it's going to be bringing you the best protection and security on the net for your laptops, your mobiles, your tablets, all of the above. And of course, you can change your geolocation to any of the supported territories that Nord do have, which is plenty. Go check out all the details, of course, on the NordVPN website. But if you go to nordvpn.com/Gooner or go down to the link in the description, you can get yourself a significant discount off that 1 or 2 year plan and 4 months extra thrown in free on top of that as well. Who can say any fairer than that? Right, let's go to part 2 and your questions right after this. Okay, this is part 2 of the show where we tackle your questions and more in the chat box. So use a capital Q. It really would help us out here if you could be ever so kind, ever so brave to be able to help us. So please do drop a like on the video. Lauren says, if we get past Crystal Palace, who would be your ideal opponents in the next round? Of course, if you make it to a League Cup semi-final, it means playing 2 legs. And that is something of a frustration, isn't it? Because it means you're playing more games in a tough period, home and away, and you're most likely playing against a very big team on top of that as well. So if I had to choose between any of the teams, of course, that Arsenal are going up against, you'd like Southampton to beat Liverpool and then play them. You'd like Brentford to beat Newcastle. You don't want Newcastle. The idea of going to Newcastle home and away is tough. Spurs at home would be great. I hope Spurs home and away, I think, would be great. A North London derby, we'd have to travel too far. Manchester United would be good. There are teams. You just don't, I think, avoid Liverpool and Newcastle. I think Tottenham, Man United, Southampton, Brentford, any of those would be, what you'd want to see in the semi-final if Arsenal get there. And it's an if, Arsenal haven't got there yet. They need to beat Crystal Palace, which is not a given. They've just beaten Aston Villa. They're no mugs. We know that. They've just beaten Spurs as well. On a bit of a run. They've beaten 2 big sides already in the space of a week. So you can't take anything for granted against these teams, and we shouldn't be taking them for granted as well. Ken says, lots of bangers yesterday. Nwaneri, Casemiro, Gakpo. Pleasant evening for Arsenal. Entertaining evening in general. Absolutely. Gakpo's goal was something else. Casemiro as well, impressive. But Gakpo's goal, I thought, was so good. Celebration, cold as well. Mark says, Arteta now has a great opportunity to add some silverware to appease the fans who say just competing in the Premier League isn't good enough. You're absolutely right. Jamil says, do you think Mikel played Saka, Timber, etc. in order to keep their fitness up, as I was surprised they featured given their recent injury issues? Yes, that's exactly what. And obviously needs must. We don't really have many options at right back. Ben White was completely rested. He had load management for this game. He'll be back, I imagine, for the weekend. So that should be okay. But yeah, Timber was always going to start there. Partey coming on, playing at right back. We don't have some other options. Josh Nichols, of course, we could have gone with, but we decided not to. But I'm not surprised. I think we needed to play them. I think they needed to get minutes just to keep them fresh, keep them hot going into the game against Newcastle on Saturday. Rich says, I only saw the highlights last night. What did you make of Heaven? I mean, it wasn't like a performance where we saw loads of him. It was only for the last 10, 15 minutes or so. But he did okay. Some confident passing, confident defending. Wasn't too much to jump into. Freddie says, did you buy the jumper in that style as well? No, I've only bought this shirt. I didn't buy the jumper. When a new set comes out, I'm always tempted to buy loads, but I have to try and keep it as controlled as possible. And I think I saw a question. Mr. Happy says, what hat is this? This is the Arsenal Aries hat that came out this season, with the jacket that was like 350 quid, which I liked, but I'm not spending 350 quid on that jacket. There's no way. Alex says, as this is the Mickey Mouse Cup and the last few seasons we've gone out early, is this a cup that we should be aiming for? You're in a position where you can win it now. You know, you're in a quarterfinal against Crystal Palace. You should be making a semi at least. And now Man City are out. Arsenal are definitely one of those favourites for the competition. So, yes, Arsenal should be aiming to try and win this competition. It'd be a really good boost, a really good confidence builder, and a bit of silverware, of course, to kind of keep the critics a little bit more quieter as well. It does help. The League Cup is always a bit of a kind of a bonus when you win it. It's nothing kind of like, it's not transformative, but it's definitely a reference point. Watermelon says, I'm on the opposite side of that, Tom. I want to see the kids against better sides. I really want to see them in pressure situations. I think our squad is good enough to go against any side at the moment. JRS says, if things carry on, does anyone else see a vacant 10 being given to Nwaneri, Ødegaard's prodigy? Ødegaard, of course, number 8. He's not going to be taking that 10. Nwaneri, the number 10 shirt, is there for the future. Will he take it one day? There's a lot of football still to be played before I think that happens. Ant says, who do we want to see eliminated more, Tom? Spurs or United? I like the idea of us knocking Spurs out and ending their cup hopes. That would be great if we did that. Nonzo says, any news on Big Gabby? Probably not going to get any news until Arteta's presser tomorrow. Maybe he's back. Maybe he still needs to have a week or so off. Let's wait and see. But there's no... It's not serious, which is good, but let's wait and see. Rob says, Nwaneri, arguments of destroying youngsters' confidence by starting them too soon. Just don't hold that kind of weight. He's never looked at a place or made mistakes, so why wait and give him much more with Ødegaard out as well? I mean, we've all agreed on here that we think Nwaneri should be getting more minutes. We've been saying it. You know, we've been saying I think he should have started against Southampton. He could have started against Bournemouth. He could have started against Shakhtar, and he didn't. And that was a frustration. And I wish he had started those games. I think it was important to give him more starts, but he was always going to start this one, and he started this one, and he's done very, very well indeed. Derek says, "Hi mate, does it look like Partey, Rice, and Merino in midfield at Newcastle with White, Saliba, and Gabby and Timber?" No, I think it'll be Rice, Merino. No, I think it'll be Partey, Rice, and Trossard. And I think it'll be White, Saliba, Timber, maybe at left back. Maybe Kivior goes there. It depends if Gabriel's back. That's a big one. But Zinchenko was really good. Zinchenko was really good last night, and I think that maybe gives Arteta something to think about. So you could go White, Timber, or Timber, White, Saliba, playing left-sided centre-half, and Zinchenko, or Kivior. I think you've got options, but I'm leaning a bit towards Zinchenko, Equally, you could go Partey, White, Saliba, Timber, and then put Rice and Merino in midfield. That's something else that you could opt to do as well. Stevie says Virgil van Dijk. Oh, sorry, not Virgil van Dijk. Van de Ven suffered a hamstring. Yes, didn't look great. Van de Ven going to be out for a little bit as well. Freddie says, do you know Harry Symeou? Harry Symeou. No, I've never heard of Harry Symeou. Have you heard of Harry Symeou? Maybe he's into cats. Maybe he's a cat YouTuber. Harry Symeou. No, it's not ringing a bell. It's not ringing a bell, Freddie. Sorry. I can't say I've heard of Harry Symeou. But there's a lot of YouTubers out there, Rob says, we've done that one already. Ridge says, I think if Nwaneri gets 10 to 15 goals and assists before the end of the season, give him the number 10. 95 did it again, says, wouldn't Spurs in the final be tasty? It would, but I don't like the idea of if we were to lose that, you've handed the trophy to Spurs. I don't like that. Knock them out in the semi-final. Give them that false hope. Beat them twice. Tristan says, do you think Mikel is reluctant to let Nwaneri shine as it will take away the chance of signing chances for his signing Marino? No, I don't think that's anything to do with it, Tristan. That theory is rather wacky. No, I don't think it's that at all. They're different types of players. Jacob says, what is the starting lineup for Newcastle? We'll be doing a preview show tomorrow, so make sure you tune into our preview show tomorrow and you can find out all about our lineups for that game. Vanna says, seeing Zinchenko played the majority of the game, can we take it that Arteta prefers Lewis Skelly and that's why he came off the bench against Liverpool ahead of Zinchenko? I don't know if we can assume that. I think it was just a case that Zinchenko needed some minutes. Lewis Skelly had already played more football by that point. So I think it's touch and go between the two of them. But I think it's just a testament to what we've got at the moment with Lewis Skelly and with Zinchenko. AK says, any reason why Partey was subbed on with his injury history should be left out in games we don't need? Because we needed to bring off Timber. And we don't have another option at right back. So that's very obvious why we should have done that. Partey needed to come on. We needed to get minutes into his legs over the weekend. We needed to bring Timber off to rest him, and we don't really have another option at right back. So it should be fairly obvious to see why Partey came on. Mr. Thugi says, it's not about the talent or the current level of Nwaneri. I think it's rather that he still has to learn what to do and where to be during different phases of play. I guess that's why he isn't a starter yet. It's a very fair point there. Nelson says, Nwaneri will grow naturally. I love the Foden-esque finish for his goal, but he still has levels to reach before he's up there with the players above him in the pecking order. First is Tom, seeing as it's Halloween, are you a fan of going to those horror houses where you walk in a place and people start jumping out at you? I did it last week and it'll be the last time. Yeah, I'm not. Not for me. I'm not a scary movie fan. I'm not a Halloween-y type person. CJ says, do you think Tierney will get a game with this season? Maybe he'll be back for that game against Palace. Maybe we might see Kieran Tierney used in that game. Could be the perfect opportunity. Mikel Arteta has, of course, been speaking about him recently and gave an update on him. So that's it. Freddie, oh goodness me. You spelled Harry's name completely fine. Clearly that sarcasm went way over your head. You spelled it correct. I was dissing your spelling, Freddie. Oh, my dear. Oh, God. Some people just don't get sarcasm, do they? 1942 Biko says, don't you feel excited or interested by how this season will unfold? Of course, yes. Sterling and Jesus picking up form. Zinchenko, Tomiyasu, maybe? Saka, White are back. Timber, yes. Odegaard on his way back. Third place after a difficult run. I mean, we've had a very tricky start to the season. Very, very difficult start to the season. And so, for that reason, I think that to be where we are now, like if we beat Newcastle, the same date, the same point, last season, we would have dropped the same amount of points. So let's just hope that we can turn that around. Derek says, without jinxing it, I'm sort of now thinking, when is Partey going to break down? He's looking strong and good shape. Don't say that, Derek. What are we talking about that for? You're not tempting fate. Freddie says, it was a genuine question. If I mean, Harry's come on the show hundreds of times, so I thought it was a joke. Because he's been on, and I've been on his channel hundreds of times. That's why I thought it was a funny question. William says, it was not a debut for our goalkeeper because he was in the last cup as well. That was his debut, William. Jack Porter played in the last round in goal. So it was definitely a debut for Tommy Setford. Rob says, lol, non-English people not getting English sarcasm. It's his own form of comedy. Rob speaking as a New Zealand person there, of course. Yeah, my sarcasm goes over so many people's heads. And then I get accused of being condescending when I'm just a sarcastic guy. I can't help it. Yeah, Paul says, we've literally done the Canton and Simu show. It was genuinely a series we've run on the channel before and on Harry's channel as well. Moon Defat says, hi, Tom. Are we still keeping it up at 9 from 8 a.m. to 9? I mean, we're keeping it up at 8 a.m., mate. That's what it's got to be. We got to keep going. The 8 a.m. shows are 8 a.m., but these are the new time for the show if you're not based in the UK because the clocks went back. So here in the UK, so it is 8 a.m. here when the show starts, but I know around the world the show has changed times somewhat. Matt says Tom's seen Harry more times than his own wife. Not quite accurate. And says, I actually found myself feeling sorry for Sterling. He worked hard. He deserved that goal towards the end. Absolutely. Mr. D says, good morning, guys. New subscriber. Welcome, Mr. D, to the chat. Really appreciate you joining us. And will we start eating on Saturday? I wouldn't be averse to it, but I would be very surprised if it happened. Right, that's going to bring us to the end of today's episode. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. I'll be back with you tomorrow morning, bright and early, 8 a.m., rounding up all the latest Arsenal news from the next 24 hours. Guess what I'm doing, though, on Friday? Actually, I need to double-check. I need to double-check if I am going to be here tomorrow morning, because I'm doing something that, once again, I am going and crossing to the other side. Let me just find if I am going to be able to do the show or not. Press conference. Yes, I am. I am going to be doing the Tottenham press conference again on Friday because our colleague Ali Gold is not here this week. And he needs someone to cover the press conference. So I'll be doing the Tottenham press conference on Friday again, which could be fun. The question is, what colour Arsenal shirt should I wear? Anyway, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody that's joined us. I hope you have a fantastic Thursday. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. Enjoy your Halloween celebrations if you are indeed enjoying them. And I'll be back with you tomorrow morning bright and early for 8. And as always, up the Arsenal.